the one lesson was, and it's in the book, I was taught by a fantastic, I call him my second dad. His name was Lucky. He was an African guy that was a beer packer in the back of a bottle store. He taught me the top 5 principles of life. Lucky taught me the 5 principles of life. He was a beer packer. And you know, a year ago, I was in a trip in Zambia.
What are you expecting me as a reader to take away from your book?
I think in everything I do, whether it's me as a psychologist or me as the director of transformation, diversity and inclusion in a girls' school, or me as a writer, I'm constantly driving people to see themselves as the solution to their problems.
And everybody walked past the coffin, and you as well, and you're the last person, and when you got to the coffin you saw yourself lying there. What would everybody say about you on that last day when you were there?
Hello everyone, welcome to Bookmarked Conversations. This is your host Penny. This is our episode 2 of Bookmarked Conversations, and it's happening at Exclusive Book. They've revamped the store, it's beautiful, and we are so excited to be here, to be doing our podcast here. So thank you so much to Chris, the store manager, for partnering with us to actually do this podcast with these amazing authors today. So I have Barney and I have Onke. You've already introduced yourselves already. I just want to, because you did a lot of introduction there, so that was one of my questions. I was going to ask you to introduce yourselves, but you've done that. So my question is, both your books, they involve high stakes, both of your books. It's corporate corruption for you, Onke, and it's entrepreneurship in the face of hardship for you, Barney. So why are these stakes so important to explore? Why now?
So for me, I think the issue of ethical leadership and corruption and just what are we trying to achieve as a nation is something that we read about in the newspapers all the time. And I think also from my own personal experience working in a state-owned company, I think just watching the organization shift from being a place where I felt it aligned with my personal values when I started working there. But at the end of 12 years, it felt like I needed to move on because I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my desire to be a civil servant. So I think there's a lot of personal experience, but I think it's also something that all South Africans can relate to, because we all want what's best for our country. And I think that's what unites us as a nation.
Yes, awesome. And with Barney?
Such a beautiful answer from Onke. My heart's at the same place. Growing up on the streets of the East Rand, next to the railway line. This is my home. This is the place where I grew up, the African continent. And we all know that the statistics around entrepreneurship is the future. You know, Onke referred to state-owned entities and institutions that's not making money, that's only bleeding the economy. But there's entrepreneurs out there that's making a difference, and my heart's at the same place. But I took it a step further, because I'm saying, yes, there's all of us in South Africa that has this passion for entrepreneurship, but we're all trying to be in a channel where we're all trying to make our own stake, our own place, our own thing. But what happens if we take hands?
Yes.
Because if we take hands and we start to build each other, support each other, help each other, without wanting to get something back, this continent is unstoppable. I'm very blessed and fortunate in my business world over the last 35, 40 years that I've traveled the world. And I can tell you now, South Africans stand out in the US, in Europe, in Asia Pacific. We stand out like a sore thumb. What do we stand out for? Hard work, commitment, our driven passion for success, and man, do we have courage.
Yes.
And if we take that, all those characteristics of who we are and what we do, and we take hands in our nation together, we are unstoppable.
Yeah, help each other.
100%.
And also for us to like you painting this beautiful picture of the African continent. I think we are in here, we cannot see the beauty of it. So it's somewhat like we need to stand outside it and see how beautiful it is, and admire and actually do work for our country, like you are saying, and make it grow.
100%.
Yeah.
I've just come back from a trip out of Africa. I was fortunate to be doing a talk in Tanzania, in Arusha, a few weeks ago. And it's so beautiful to be in a country. Coming back into our Tambu, I actually hugged the customs person, because this is my home, you know. And you know, I traveled Europe, and I can tell you now, there's some of our organizations and institutions that is 5 times better than in Europe.
Wow.
But because we're the Africa continent, people always look at us and say, yeah, you know, they're just done in Africa. I promise you, way better.
Yes.
We must believe that.
Yes, we
and
must
if we
believe
take
that,
hands
yeah.
and we believe that going forward, like the world's...
We've made it.
We've made it.
Oh, awesome. Onke. Okay, Max is a whistleblower risking everything for the truth. What drew you to that story, and how much of it reflects real life pressures you have seen or studied?
So the story is not related to my life in terms of me being a whistleblower, but the book
But
formed...
Mark is.
The main character.
Yes, the main character.
Well, I feel like anybody that's ever worked in a place where the people you work for are against your personal beliefs, and for whatever reason, they are against you. Anyone who's ever been in that situation, I think, would be able to identify with this character.
Okay.
Yes. So for me, what inspired the book also was reading a lot of investigative journalism books, like the ones about the arms deal in South Africa, about Bosasa, about Eskom, and reading those books and reading the newspapers then made me very curious. So the book itself formed part of my PhD in creative writing. So I had to write the novel, then I also had to do research. And on the research side, I was reading a lot about whistleblowers. And that helped me then kind of understand the experiences of a whistleblower. And even though I've never been one personally, I got to understand them better. And I think, in a way, this is for me like a testament to people who are brave enough to become whistleblowers, because whether you're successful at it or not successful at it, your life will change forever.
Yes.
And it's only the brave few who are willing to take that chance.
Awesome. Barney, you speak about starting on a minus. What mindset helps you move forward when you feel like you're at the point where you don't know if things are working out, because you need to be persistent maybe at what you do? You started at that point, so now you are where you are.
I battled with that for a very, very long time. Why was I born? And we all ask that question. I'm sure every single person in this room have at one stage in their life asked the question, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why were you born? And you know, I only found my purpose after the age of 40. The
Sure.
day I found out why I was born, my world shifted.
Yes.
And and the reason why I was born, and I'll share that happily, is that my job on this planet is to help people live their true potential. And if I can help people live their true potential, and one day I go, you know, wherever I go, you know,
Yes.
the afterlife or whatever,
Yes.
then I've done my job. So we all feel at some point in our lives that we start at a minus. There's all of us sometimes feel like, why does it always happen to me? Why this, why that? You know, it's like, why does it happen to me?
Yeah.
And what helped me when I realized why I was born and why I'm here and why things are happening to me is because when your chips are down, and this is a very important lesson I'd love this audience to learn, when your chips are down, it's when you learn the most. When things are tough, that's wonderful. I hope it gets tougher. You know why? No, I do. You know why?
No.
Because that's when we grow the most. When things are really not fantastic, you step back, you look at it like an eagle view, and you go, what's the lesson that I need to learn here?
Yeah.
And I'm the first one to put up my hand. I'll tell you, when I shifted my mind around that methodology of what's the lessons, it became clear, because I knew why I was born and what was my purpose.
Yeah, awesome. And I think you touched on a very important point about, when everything started working out for you at the age of 40, when you realize your purpose. I think that's the thing that every human being battle with that. You feel like maybe you are at that point where maybe I'm too old for this, I can't start this, I can't do this, and all those kind of things. And that's what I've noticed with people that I've invited in my podcast. Majority of those people will tell me that, at the age of 40 odd, number, that's when I started finding my purpose. That's when I started being successful. So I think that's it's a lesson for all of us, that whichever stage of life you are at, do not think that you cannot start anything. You can start anything at 50. You can start anything at 60. You can start anything at whatever age. So do not think that you are late, and do not succumb to the pressure of the society. I think the society
100%.
pushes you to think that, oh gosh, I'm too old for this. No one is old for anything. You can start anything at any age. It doesn't matter. So long you have a passion for it, and you really, really can see, you have a vision for it, and you can work for it. Nothing comes easy. Everybody has to work hard. So work for it, whichever age that you are in your life, and it's gonna happen. So it's a good point that you just
I totally agree with you. I want to maybe share one or two lessons. The one lesson was, and it's in the book, I was taught by a fantastic, I call him my second dad. His name was Lucky. He was an African guy that was a beer packer in the back of a bottle store. He taught me the top 5 principles of life. Lucky taught me the 5 principles of life. He was a beer packer. And a year ago, I was in a trip in Zambia. And I did a presentation for the airport company in Zambia. And the chief commercial officer that saw my presentation after the 20 minutes stood up, he came and he hugged me with tears in his eye, and he says, "You know what, Barney, when I was 13 years old, I was also a beer packer in Zambia."
Sure.
Guess what? We connected. That is 40 years later. So that's the ones that I want to share, Penny. The last one I want to share is, and this is a very important one for me personally, and I'm happy to share it with the audience. Being in the world of entrepreneurship, growing up next to the railway line, and I can honestly today tell everybody, I chased money. I wanted a big car, I wanted the X5, I wanted a house, I wanted a boat, I wanted an aeroplane. I was hungry for success. And the more I chased the money, the more the money eluded me.
Sure.
And when I found my purpose and why I was born, I decided to stop chasing money. Guess what happens? Money starts to chase you.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, so
That's
it's just a great lesson that I wanted to share.
Yes, it is. Awesome. Both of your books, Onke, this is for your book. Both of your books speak about navigating environments that reward greed and dishonesty. Either as an employer or as an employee, how do you suggest readers learn to stay true to themselves and not be swallowed by these environments? What are you expecting us to take away? I'm taking your book today with me. So what are you expecting? And I'm in the corporate space. So what are you expecting me as a reader to take away from your book?
I think in everything I do, whether it's me as a psychologist or me as the director of transformation, diversity and inclusion in a girls' school, or me as a writer, I'm constantly driving people to see themselves as the solution to their problems. And also pushing people to ask themselves, is the thing I'm doing right now for myself the right thing? Is it right for me because I feel it inside, purpose, as Barney has mentioned?
Yeah.
Or is it something that has been told to me by other people, whether it's an authority like a boss or a government or a parent or a religious body or whatever it is?
Yeah.
If it resonates with you, whatever you're involved in, then great. So I would hope that someone who reads anything that I produce is challenged to get to that place where they feel like, what would I do?
Yes.
Am I doing currently where I am in my life? So every book I've tried to write, I've come from a place of trying to write a horror story, because Stephen King, who's a horror writer, is my favorite writer.
Okay.
But once the final product is produced, it comes across as if it's a psychological thriller. But because I write from a place of emotion, I take the horror of real life situations.
Yes.
And I hope that the person who reads it feels an emotional something. And if it's uncomfortable, then good, because then you're going to grow from that
Then
discomfort.
your book is a bit of both fiction and non-fiction, in a way. Because,
Between me and you, yeah, that's I'll agree with that.
What's the lesson, the hard lesson you've learned, Barney? What is the hardest lesson that you've learned, and how did it change the way that you live today?
The one fundamental lesson is we can lie to a lot of people in the world, but you can't lie to the person in the mirror. And that's what my book does. It challenges you individually, because you can lie to your mom and your dad, you can lie to everybody, your uncle and your aunts and your grannies and your grandpas and your gogos and whatever, but when you look in the mirror, you can't lie to that person. And that's what my book does, is it challenges you. The questions that I ask after every chapter is really, really authentic. And that's why I've left pages open with lines in it so that you can make notes. Because if you take the book and you work through the book for yourself, I can't give my book to Onke because my notes is in there, because I'm authentic to myself, I'm about myself. And that's what it does. You cannot lie to yourself. And I think often we as humans, and I'm one too, that you don't tell the truth. You tell from 1 to 7. You don't tell 8, 9, and 10, because 8, 9, and 10 is going to make you look weak or bad or whatever. So you rather just, you only tell until 7. But you can't. You have to face yourself.
Yes.
And that's the story and why it's important.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. So there's the last question I always ask people on my podcast. I'm going to start with you, Onke. Okay, what is that one thing that you like to be remembered in 100 years by future generations that Onke walked in this earth? What is that one thing that you like to be remembered with?
That I was always willing to follow something that felt like it resonated with me. And I say that because when I was 19, I dropped out of varsity and broke my mother's heart. And at that time, I was trying to be a rapper. And after 18 months of that, I decided to go back to school. And I spent 6 years to get my psychology degree. Then I got my master's in psychology, got my master's in public health. And then when I was 35, I dropped out of a psychology PhD to go write a novel.
Oh, wow.
And then 5 years later, I got my PhD in creative writing. So I feel like dropping out to follow what was important to me was important.
Okay, over to you, Barney. That's awesome, Onke. Over to you,
that's
Barney.
so inspirational.
Yes.
So in 100 years, I wanted somebody that read my book, if they hear about me not being around, I wanted them to feel like that guy touched my life in any way or format. And that's all that's important. I was very blessed one day. Everybody knows Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yes.
So Dr. Miles Monroe is one of my favorite people in the world. And he touched my life 15 years ago. Obviously, he's a very religious and all of that stuff, but forget about that. He touched my life because he created an environment. I was in a training session with him, and he created an impression of a funeral. And everybody walked past the coffin, and you as well, and you're the last person, and when you got to the coffin, you saw yourself lying there. What would everybody say about you on that last day when you were there?
Yeah.
And so my dream and my heart is, and my ambition is that when everybody reads my story, my book, they hear about me, they're like, that guy touched my life. And that's why I did.
That's amazing. I think that is the most, it's the scariest thing that everyone, I think everybody here, you always think about the thing that, will I be remembered when I'm gone, Is there, well, me, I struggle with that question. That will people remember that Penny walked here, There is even that movie, I forgot that movie, that's always it's always on my mind. It's a cartoon movie. What is it about that talks about if people on earth are not remembering you, then you perish on the other side. I don't know if people... Coco. That is, yes, thank you very much. So yes, so it so much gives you something to think about. I always watch that movie over and over again because it so much shows you a glimpse, like a little bit of glimpse to think for you to think that will there be somebody to think about me, like who will think about me at some point, or I'll just perish on the other side. So it always keeps me going every day, guys. That is my story. So it keeps me going because I don't want to be forgotten. I'm scared.
Write a book. It lasts
Write a
forever.
book. Yeah, it will
Where
always
I
be
am,
there. Yeah, it will always be there.
I am in the middle of writing a book, actually. It's funny you mentioned that. I am in the middle of writing a book, and I've recently released a magazine. So, and my magazine.
Congratulations.
This is my magazine. This is the second edition. And when I was introducing myself, I think when people who came here early, I was saying, introducing Penny and who I am, what I stand for. I stand for literature, I stand for readers. I'm in the writing space. I have a book club community that I started. I think everything started from there, through my love for reading, through love for literature. And the birth of this magazine was also coming from there. That's why it's called Reader's Bliss. It's actually looking at what excites the readers. So it's written by me. I'm owning the magazine, and I have a team that works with me. So we are readers, and we are writing on the reader's perspective. So it's everything interesting for the readers. So yes, so I am living my dream. I am. I am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barney. Thank you so much, Onke. So that wraps up our episode 2. We will have our episode 3 shortly. So please just stay tuned. Click those subscribe buttons and those notifications open, and please just follow our pages to explore our conversation today. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Benny. Thank you very much.